Hello everyone and welcome to the latest episode of Let's See How Quickly This Video Gets Demonetized. So early on in my video making journey, I made a video listing my top 10 favorite video game songs of all time. You know, back when I had no clue how to edit let alone level out audio properly. Seriously, check it out, it's actually pretty funny. I had a lot of fun making this list and had originally planned on making a new episode every month, calling those episodes Volume 2, 3, 4, and so on. Naturally, that didn't happen, but after revisiting that video, I did want to make another episode. Firstly, because I've heard so much more great music since running this channel, and second, because my musical taste has changed. As it typically does over 6 years. So, without further ado, let's look at 10 of... 20. Why 20? Because honestly, it's hard to condense a list like this into 10s. So let's look at 20 of my favorite video game tracks. Number 20. Windmill Hills, Donkey Kong Country, Tropical Freeze. Why is this track on the list? Because it has to be. Why does it have to be? Because I have been listening to this song religiously since the game came out. Now, with David Wise reprising his role as composer from the original DKC games, it's no surprise that this entire soundtrack is incredible. But to me, this track stands out the most. This charming, rustic, and peaceful track sets the stage for the mountainous adventure of World 2 and wonderfully sets a relaxing tone. Actually, I have a theory that in the entire DKC series, the most peaceful tunes are played during the hardest levels. Now, Windmill Hills wasn't too hard, but on the other hand, Aquatic Ambience and Sticker Brush Symphony. But regardless of difficulty or game, this lovely track has given me hours of enjoyment and is going to be staying on my playlist. Number 19. The main theme to Fallout 4. Is this theme extremely similar to Fallout 3? Yes. Do I care? Nope. I absolutely loved the title theme to Fallout 3 as it set a somber, intense, and overall epic theme for the game. Fallout 4 uses the same base theme, but slowly builds as it goes along. As each new instrument is added, the theme becomes more intense, building up to a magnificent climax, before slowly fading out again. This is absolutely one of those games where I need to listen to the entire main menu theme before playing. I've heard many opinions of this game, ranging from great to passable to to fucking shit. But quality of game aside, I've heard very little debate on the theme. Einen Zur knocked it out of the park once again, and I am extremely grateful. The Fallout series may change over time, but war and its music never changes. Number 18. Vegetable Valley, Kirby, and the Rainbow Curse. And now for something completely different. So you may recall that I didn't much care for this game. In fact, you could even say that I was being overly critical of a children's game. In fact, you could say that I was just in a bad mood and was nitpicking. Come see, come saw. All of that being said, the music of this game was very enjoyable. However, my favorite track from this game has to be its rendition of Vegetable Valley. This track doesn't even play in any of the levels and is relegated to the music room in the main menu. Which is a crime, mind you. This track is absolutely delightful. It doesn't really change the original musically, but this interpretation creates a gleeful and childlike atmosphere which excellently matches up with the Kirby series. From Vegetable Valley to Wispy Woods, the Kirby series has some incredible music. And a weak game aside, Rainbow Curse was no exception. Number 17. Rooftop Run Classic from Sonic Generations. Sonic Generations was a fascinating game. Taking the best levels from previous Sonic games, modifying them slightly, and making them both playable in a side-scrolling and 3D platforming style, made for the best Sonic game in over a decade. Now, I have it under good authority that Rooftop Run was the best level from Sonic Unleashed, and its leitmotif was also excellent. But the classic rendition from Sonic Generations is probably my favorite track in that entire game. This fun, upbeat, and energetic track filled with violins, synth, and drums really sets the stage for a blue hedgehog running, jumping, and spin dashing across the rooftops. While it is quite different from its original incarnation, I can easily say for me that this is the most consistently played Sonic track on my entire playlist. Sorry, Planet Wisp, you just weren't funky enough. Number 16. Broadway from SimCity 3000 Unlimited. Why yes, I do adore this game. And yes, I am going to make a Best Games I've Ever Played episode on it. Stay tuned. The music in this game is just incredible. It all starts off slowly, usually with one or two instruments. Over time, it begins getting more complex, adding more instruments while getting louder and more powerful. By the time the track hits its peak, you hear all of the instruments playing in harmony, swelling up to an incredible climax. Then once it's all over, it fades back to a few instruments, ready to start all over again. The majority of tracks in this game are all based around the 4 chords that begin this track. Be they jazz, easy listening, or new age, every single piece of music in this game is absolutely marvelous. But with Broadway's powerful presence, wonderful build, and magnificent orchestration, this is one piece of music that encourages me to build over and over again. Number 15. Super Bell Hill from Super Mario 3D World. God, I love this track. From the moment I popped this game into my Wii U, I knew that I was in for a treat. With an incredible fusion of 2D and 3D styled Mario gameplay, this game was an absolute delight. The soundtrack was no exception. Some of the tracks in this game were just remixes from previous games, which was fine as those were wonderful as well. But Super Bell Hill, with its jazzy, upbeat, and extremely catchy tune, did a magnificent job at introducing me to this newest addition to the Mario library of games. So whether you're running with your doppelgangers, riding an awfully familiar dinosaur, or of course, just being a cat, this game and this music make for a wonderful experience. Number 14. It's a Big World Outside, Stardew Valley. Stardew Valley may be the most relaxing game I've ever played. Nope. Sorry, Animal Crossing, you lose. Beat it. As you'd expect, in a game about starting your life anew with an inherited farmland in a sleepy town, the soundtrack absolutely reflects this premise. Every season has 4 different tracks which all fit perfectly into their respective period. But this first track that plays when you begin your adventure into your new life perfectly encapsulates the joy and peace that will be found in this game. I honestly couldn't think of a better, more optimistic track for farming, exploring, foraging, or finding love in this magical valley. It's a big world outside, and this music will help you get started with your new life here in Stardew Valley. Number 13. Winter's White from Earthbound. Earthbound has a ton of extremely catchy and memorable music, so this was a tricky choice. Did I want to go with the ever-classic 4 side, the peaceful and down-to-earth boy meets girl from Tucson, or of course the iconic and heartwarming 8 melodies? Actually, now that I mentioned those, I'm second-guessing myself. But anyway, I've decided to go with the theme to Winters with Winter's White. This festive, charming, and somewhat somber piece wonderfully sets the stage for this snowy landscape. This theme also pulls double duty as it plays when you first begin playing as Jeff, a genius child severely neglected by his father, who sets off on an epic adventure to save the world. As he shakes off the snow and begins his journey, this pleasant music reminiscent of Christmas tunes greatly introduces the player to this character and makes for one enjoyable experience. This winter may be long, but with tunes like this, I'm okay with that. Number 12. Hopes and Dreams / Save the World, Undertale. Oh hey, speaking of Earthbound, Undertale for me was just as difficult to pick one track, because good lord does this game have a magnificent OST. But in the end, there was only one that I felt I could pick. Hopes and Dreams and Save the World both played during the final boss of a pacifist playthrough. This boss in and of itself is absolutely amazing, and utilizes some extremely clever attacks. But the music creates an incredibly epic and high-octane atmosphere in this fight for the entire universe. Like most music in the game, it derives from the leitmotif in the main menu, but it also borrows from various other tracks throughout, as if bringing everything to a conclusion. Once it switches over to Save the World during the second phase, it keeps its energy and passion, but also adds some notes of hope. This hope works perfectly as you call out to your friends, save their souls, and ultimately save the world. You may hope, and you may dream, but in the end, your determination is what will save the world. Evan, are you there? It's me, your best friend. I don't want to let go. Number 11. Longest Night, Night in the Woods. So the fascinating thing about this track is that it isn't strictly speaking part of the game itself. In fact, it actually plays during the first supplemental material for the game titled, you guessed it, Longest Night. This free supplement shows the main character sitting around on the first day of winter, gazing at the constellations. This not only provides some backstory for the game proper, but also gives the players a feel for the dynamic of these characters and their friendship. The soundtrack for this game is marvelous and greatly sets the stage for this sleepy and dying mining town, but Longest Night was the track that always stood out to me. With its simple and relaxing tone, it really does create a peaceful and comforting atmosphere for these friends without a care in the world. Which does become slightly heartbreaking in hindsight, but that's another story. So, as the weird autumn ends and the longest night begins, this track creates an atmosphere of peace, comfort, and camaraderie. Greg rules, okay. Number 9. Noki Bay, Super Mario Sunshine. So in one of my original videos on my favorite video game tracks, I decided to go with Peanut Park. That track just had such a fun and upbeat tempo that hearing it in the theme park was just delightful, despite some extremely difficult levels. But over the years, I've realized that while listening to my video game playlist, I've been far more likely to skip past Peanut Park and listen to Noki Bay. Noki Bay is just so relaxing and fun that I could play this on loop for hours. The tune of Noki Bay invokes images of relaxing on the beach and watching the waves go by. Which of course makes perfect sense given the theme of the game. With one of the only quote-unquote water levels in the game, Noki Bay is also arguably one of the most difficult stages. So naturally the music is extremely peaceful. I swear they do that on purpose. But difficult or not, Noki Bay is a wonderful piece of music, which is why it has stuck with me to this day. Number 8. Super Smash Bros. Melee Main Menu. The second I hear this track, I immediately get hyped. This is when I know it's all or nothing. Dr. Mario, Marth, Roy, Link, Game & Watch, Mewtwo, you name it, Final Destination, Hyrule Temple, Foresight, Ornette, Fountain of Dreams. Hold on, I need to play this game real quick. Okay, I'm back. This incredibly epic and energetic theme perfectly sets the stage for this classic Nintendo brawler. With this music on in the background, I have the confidence that I could fight anyone. Granted, this was occasionally false confidence, but details. Whether playing the lottery, choosing your character, or just sitting idly by, the pure rush of nostalgia, energy, and wonder makes this one track that will never leave my playlist. That is until iTunes updates again. Number 7. Call of Magic: The Elder Scrolls III Morrowind. Ah yes, the track that snowballed the themes for the next 2 games. But really, what can I say about this theme? It is incredibly epic, greatly composed, and extremely catchy. Ever since I first heard this theme, it has constantly refused to leave my head, which is why I still find myself whistling it throughout the day. Call of Magic has a more peaceful and magical tune to it, which matches the mystical setting of Morrowind, as opposed to the more powerful and epic theme to Skyrim, or the more regal and upbeat tempo to Oblivion. But I think it's this peace and elegance that really sticks with me. So, with its magical sound, epic composure, and beautiful orchestration, Call of Magic is more than worthy of my personal favorite video game tracks of all time. Number 6. Aquatic Ambience, Donkey Kong Country. So this track is probably so well known for 2 major reasons. First, because it's such a wonderful and beautifully composed piece of music. Second, because it plays during some of the most ball-bustingly difficult levels in the entire game. Remember what I said about Nintendo playing peaceful music during difficult levels? Well, Rare was notorious for this. Just goes to show that apes probably have no business deep diving. Extremely difficult swimming aside, Aquatic Ambience is an exotic and hauntingly beautiful piece of music. This, along with one other piece, which I will get to in a moment actually, is exactly what I think of when I think water level. The serene flow and slow build invoke imagery of running water, and the extremely impressive layering of this track is enough to give me the chills anytime I listen. While the entire OST of Donkey Kong Country is absolutely incredible, Aquatic Ambience is the one that has stuck with me throughout the years. And with countless remixes and remakes, including some from future DKC titles, this just goes to show that Aquatic Ambience is one amazing piece of music. Number 5. Rainbow Road, Mario Kart 64. This was a tricky one. The reason being that I adore every single rendition of Rainbow Road from every single Mario Kart. The SNES version has a very powerful and upbeat tempo, while Mario Kart Double Dash, the one I've played the most, has a much happier tone overall. Which is funny as it's the one where you're most likely to fly off the edge. I mean, Mario Kart 8's version was so triumphant and hopeful that you'd expect it to play during the end credits. But for me, I had to go back to where it all began, Being one of the first video games that I've ever played, Mario Kart 64 made a huge impression on me and really opened the door as to what could be achieved in this medium. When I first played Rainbow Road, I was stunned by its vibrance, length, and overall tone. But what has truly stuck with me over the years is the very theme to this track. As opposed to some of the other renditions of Rainbow Road, this version has a very peaceful, relaxing, and overall warm feeling. Heck, it can almost make you forget that you're supposed to be racing. This is truly one of the great video game tracks that has stuck with many gamers, myself included, throughout the years. So, whether avoiding cars on Toad's Turnpike, avoiding rocks on Choco Mountain, or riding the Rainbow Road, I know that at the very least, I'll have some incredible music to keep me company. Number 4. Hyrule Field, The Legend of Zelda, Twilight Princess. In all honesty, I'm still trying to figure out in my head whether I preferred Twilight Princess or Wind Waker. They're just so good! But the Hyrule Field theme in Twilight Princess is just incredible. No relation. While the more iconic option may be Hyrule Field from Ocarina of Time, which is also a great choice, the power and elegance of this rendition truly stands out to me. With Twilight Princess being a far darker game than many other Legend of Zelda titles, this is greatly reflected by the soundtrack. This rendition of Hyrule Field not only utilizes the original Legend of Zelda theme, but also mixes in the leitmotif from Twilight Princess itself. The darkness and dire situation of this game is also shown in this track, as the powerful brass and strings increasingly build to make a magnificently epic theme. Now, if this is just the track that plays while traveling, imagine how the rest of the soundtrack feels. In all honesty, this game has an absolutely amazing OST, and Hyrule Field is just one of many songs that I could have used. But when I think Twilight Princess, this is the track that comes to mind. Midna's Lament was a close second. So while saving the kingdom from the Twilight Realm, rescuing the princess, and saving a life, I could think of little better motivation than this incredible soundtrack. Number 3. Dire Docks, Super Mario 64. So here's the story. 6 years ago, I purchased a keyboard. I had literally not touched any sort of piano in the 8 years prior. This was the track that I immediately began playing. Yes, I love this song. Originally, this track probably stood out to me the most because it's one of the only songs in the game that isn't just to play off of Bob-omb Battlefield. Now don't get me wrong, I seriously appreciate all of the music in this game, but Jolly Roger Bay and Dire Docks always had such a peaceful mysticism to them. As I've mentioned previously, this is definitely the track that I immediately think of when I think of water levels in video games. With its deliberate and flowing composure, slowly layered background tracks, and magical synth sound, I could easily ignore that terrifying eel. With this wonderful composition, pure rush of nostalgia, and hypnotically peaceful tune, Dire Docks is not only one of my favorite video game tracks of all time, but it is easily one of the best pieces of music that I've ever heard. Number 2. Dragon Roost Island, The Legend of Zelda, Wind Waker. So remember when I did my best games I've ever played episode on Wind Waker? Remember when I said that Dragon Roost Island was my ringtone? Well, it still is. This island that was once the domain of the Zoras now finds itself populated by birdfolk and a giant dragon roosting on top of a volcano. Yeah, the title is basically everything you need to know. Now, this being a Legend of Zelda game, you probably know the drill by now. That drill being that every single piece of music in this game is wonderful. As such, I could have chosen the heroic and peaceful Great Sea, the charming and homey Outset Island, Windfall Island, which is a clever arrangement of Kakariko Village if you didn't know, or even the incredibly optimistic opening score. But in the end, Dragon Roost Island has to be my favorite. With its incredibly fast strings laying the foundation for the rest of the track, the winds creating the melody, and a funky bass line, which is conspicuously missing from the HD remake, and even a few more instruments I'd missed until I spun my headphones around. I'm partially deaf in one ear. The elegance and wonder of this track makes me hyped and ready to face any challenge that may come my way. Which can prove problematic, as this track also gives me plenty of reason to never leave the island. But once I do leave and continue on my great adventure across the Great Sea, I'll rest easily knowing that I'll have some incredible music to keep me company. From Outset Island to Dragon Roost, from Windfall Island to Forest Haven, every single stop on this adventure graced me with an atmosphere of wonder, excitement, and adventure. Thankfully, the music was no exception, and the winds are still rising. And finally, number 1. Chrono Trigger. No, I really do mean all of it. Yeah, you may have noticed that the closer I got to number 1, the more trouble I was having choosing just one track from each game. So when I finally got around to this spot, I didn't even try. Now some of you may be thinking, oh come on, you can't do that, that's cheating. Oh yeah? Well, come over here and stop me. Please don't. But seriously, how on earth could I even choose? Not only is this one of the greatest games ever created, but it has to have hands down the greatest video game OST that I've ever heard. Chrono Trigger, Peaceful Days, Guardia Fair, Yearnings of Wind, Memories of Green, Secret of the Forest, Minoria Cathedral, Masamune, Robo's Theme, Singing Mountain, Corridors of Time, Chalice Theme, Undersea Palace, Far Off Promise, First Festival of Stars, Epilogue to Good Friends, and finally, To Faraway Times. I think that covers the highlights. Anyone who's played this game could probably understand my predicament here. Each and every track in this entire game perfectly matches its setting and is masterfully composed. From the extremely fun and upbeat Guardia Fair, to the powerful and inspiring Masamune, or even the somber and thoughtful Memories of Green. Each and every track in this game has stuck with me to this day. If you aren't familiar with this game or just haven't heard the soundtrack, then I implore you to at least listen to the OST. I'm serious, it can easily be found on YouTube. Yes, it's around 2 hours long, but you can listen in segments. Although, if you get as hooked as I did, you may just listen to the entire library in one setting. There is not a single track in this game that I think is forgettable, let alone poorly done. For this reason, along with everything I've just said, Chrono Trigger has my favorite video game tracks of all time. Thanks for watching, everyone. I'd be interested in hearing what you thought of the list along with some of your favorites in the comments. You never know, you may just convince me to change up my list. So until we meet again, this has been E-Dog. Still gaming, still jamming. See you next time.